Okay, so welcome to lecture once again, guys. Now in this lecture, I'll be talking about OOPS programming concept, object-oriented programming concept inside Python. Now, so why OOPS is important? So obviously OOPS is going to give a structure to my entire code base. It is going to increase a reusability of my code. Anyone today, tomorrow, or maybe day after tomorrow, so would like to change something inside my code. If they would like to add some sort of a feature, they will be able to add it in a easiest possible way. This is where OOPS concept comes into a picture. So where we divide each and everything in a terms of classes and object. Now inside this OOPS programming concept, there are multiple things which comes in between. So there is something called as class, there is something called as object, encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, many more things, right? Many more things will come in between, and one by one, we are going to talk about all of these things. So let's get started, and I believe my screen is visible to all of us. Now, in a very first place, let's try to understand that what is a class and what is an object. Because this is a very first thing that all of you are going to encounter while talking about OOPS programming concept. So what is class, by the way, and how do we create a class? That is something which is very, very important and which we are supposed to understand. So see, a class is nothing but a blueprint, a sketch, a kind of a diagram, you can say, or technically it's a blueprint of anything and everything that you are going to develop or you are going to deliver. For example, if I'm going to write I is equals to 10, right? So Python will be able to understand that, okay, so this variable, right, that I have created, basically it's a integer variable. And then with respect to this variable, I can try to bring in, or I can try to call, right, with this respect to this variable. So I can try to bring in, or I will be able to call any related method or anything which is associated with it, right? Anything which is associated with it. So by default, Python program is able to understand that this is something which is a variable of a integer class. Similarly, if I'm going to create a string s is equal to studh, same thing is going to happen, right? Same thing is going to happen, and it will be able to understand that, okay, so this belongs to a string class. So it belongs to a string class, and all the associated method it will be able to list down. So whatever method someone has written for this string class, so you will be able to find out each and everything, right? And many special method as well you will be able to find out over here with respect to a string. So everything and anything which has been implemented inside a Python, so obviously it belongs from some of the classes, and you just try to create an object, you just try to create a variable. So objects are nothing but a class variable, right? So you are just trying to create a variable, and automatically Python is able to understand that, okay, this is the type of this variable, and let's try to assign this particular feature to this one. This is something which happens inside the Python. That's completely fine. Okay. So how I will be able to create my own class, how I will be able to declare my own variable, which is technically an object, we will try to understand all of these things inside this lecture. So if you have to create a class inside a Python, so you can try to use a keyword called as class, and then you can try to write your class name called as test. Let's suppose you can try to give your name, my name as well. That's completely fine. So here I'm going to create a class called as test, and then I don't want to define anything inside this class. So what I can do is maybe I can try to leave it as it is. But if I'm going to execute it, it is going to give me an error, right? It is going to give me an error because it is expecting something inside this class if I have created a class. So what I will do is over there is that I can write a pass over here. We have already discussed about a pass keyword, right? So whenever we don't want any kind of implementation, so we can try to write a pass keyword and it will be passed. Very simple, right? It will be passed over here in this particular manner. Now, so when we say that we are not writing over here inside the class, right? So what is things that we can write? That's another question, right? So what is the thing? What is something that we can try to create inside a class? So we can try to create anything and everything that we want inside a class. For example, so let's suppose if I'm trying to create a class called as course, right? So we are selling courses. So obviously we can try to create a class called as course over here. And then we can try to define a function inside this class, right? So maybe I can try to define a function called as course details over here. And then inside this, I can try to print that this will give you a course details. Yeah, details. So now I have created a function inside a class, right? I have created a function inside a class, and I'm trying to write something inside this function. Now, is it going to work, right? Is it going to work? Let's see. So whether it is going to work or not. So here I have created a class, and inside that there is a function which I have declared, and I have written something inside this function as well. Now here, so if I'm going to create a class variable, so how I can create a class variable? So I can create a class variable by writing any variable name just like this, right? Just for the string or just for the integer that we have written. So by writing any variable name, and then we can try to call a course over here. So if we are going to call a course over here, it will be able to create a class variable. So C is what? C is basically a variable of course class. Yeah, C is basically technically a variable of a course class. Now execute. Now here, so if I would like to access C dot course detail, will I be able to access it? No, I will not be able to access this one. There is a very simple reason for that. So here I have created a function, as you can see, and inside this function, everything looks fine. So there is nothing wrong with this particular function, but the problem is that if I'm trying to create some function inside a class, so I have to attach this function, or I have to refer this function to this particular class, so that via an object I can try to attach this particular function and I will be able to access it. Yeah. So how I can do that? So here you have to write a self keyword, and with the help of self keyword, this function, a very first parameter that you are going to define. So this for the very first argument or very first parameter is going to attach your entire function to a course class. Simple, right? So this self is going to attach this entire function to a course class. Now, if I'm going to execute, you will be able to get, or you will be able to fetch this particular function, right? This particular function out of this course class. Now, so this is a class variable, right? This is a class variable. Now, this variable, right? This variable is called as object. This is called as object. So C is technically a class variable, or in other word, you can say that this is the object that I'm talking about. Very simple, right? This is the object that I'm talking about over here. And with the help of this object, you will be able to access anything and everything which is available inside the class. Not everything, but yeah. So as we will progress, as we will move, we'll try to understand more and more about it. Yeah. So this is not just one single variable you will be able to create. You will be able to create as many variable of this class as possible. So let's suppose C1 is a new variable I have created, and then C1 is trying to fetch a course detail. So yeah, I'm able to do that, right? Maybe C2 is something which I'm going to create as a class variable. So C2 is basically a course class variable. And then C2 is also trying to fetch basically a course detail. So yeah, it is able to fetch. Now here C1, C2 and C, all three of it is able to call this course detail. Now, so this variable C or C1 or C2, when it is trying to call this course detail function, or you can say method, right? Class method. So whenever it is trying to call this particular class method, so it is trying to call a separate instances. So this is different, this is different, and this is different. So this one is attached with this C variable. This one is attached with a C1 variable, and this one is attached with technically a C2 variable. So both are basically a different instances. So in other words, this class variable is called as object, as otherwise it's called as even a class instances. So all of these are basically calling a different instances of this same method which I have defined. And this is where you will be able to understand that I'm trying to increase our reusability. Reusability means I can try to create thousands of variables, means I have written this function only one time, and anyone and everyone is able to call it. Anyone and everyone will be able to use it as many times as possible in their own way, with their own variable, right? In their own way, with their own variables. So that's a beauty of the classes and object that we are talking about. For example, same goes with this string. So anyone and everyone can create a string, right? And millions of string you can try to create. There is no restriction on that. Similarly, so on this one, there is no restriction. One thing you have to make sure that whatever you are trying to declare inside, like let's suppose I'm trying to declare a function inside the class. So it should be attached with the class. So with the help of this parameter, a very first parameter, I'm trying to attach with the class. Now you can ask me a question that is self is a predefined keyword, because you will see self everywhere. I would say no. For example, so I'm going to copy the same one, and here, so instead of self, I'm going to write my name. Yeah, I'm going to write my name. And now if I'm going to create a C3 variable, C3 is basically a course class variable, right? And then C3 dot course detail, if I'll try to fetch, I'm able to do that, right? So this is not a keyword. It's just a first parameter which will be treated as a reference variable, or you can say it's a instance variable, so that it will be able to attach this function to the class, so that whenever you are going to call this particular function via any object, right? Whenever you will try to call this function via any object, it will be able to search inside the class that, okay, fine, so there is something which has been attached. If you're not doing it, it will not be able to find out. It will not be able to see the attachment over there. So now, so let's try to understand our next step. So let's suppose if I have to pass any kind of argument inside the function. So how I will be able to pass, for example, so if I have to pass maybe a course, a name over here, if I have to pass maybe a course mentor over here. So yes, in this way, just like a simple normal function, you will be able to pass anything and everything that you want. Anything and everything means anything and everything literally you want, you will be able to pass it over here. Only the first parameter will be treated as a reference variable. That's it, right? This is the only thing which will be treated, as you can see over here. So is basically self@course. So basically it is referring to the course class, and it is trying to attach this one, so that any of my object or any of my variable or any of my instances will be able to access it in a easiest possible manner. Okay, fine. So here I have mentioned this course name and a course mentor. So now it will be looking for these two things whenever I'm going to call this particular function. So you have to provide a course name. So maybe I can try to provide a Python over here, and then you can try to provide a mentor name. So maybe I can try to provide SUDH over here. And yeah, so now it's working, right? Now it is able to print whatever I have written. So maybe if I would like to print like a course name and a course mentor, I can print that as well. So maybe formatted a string, and inside this I can try to call course name, and then I can try to call a course mentor, and yeah, so Python and Stanshu, I'm able to get it, right? I'm able to get it, as simple as that. Now, so this is fine. Now let's suppose if I have to pass some sort of a data when I'm trying to create an object. If I have to pass some sort of a data when I'm trying to create an object, for example, so if I do I is equals to 10, so obviously I is equal to 10 when I do, so I'm trying to create this variable I, and I'm trying to pass some sort of a value for it, right? I'm trying to pass some sort of a value for it. So similarly, so when I'm trying to create this class variable C3 or C2 or whatever, so whenever I'm trying to create this class variable, so if I have to pass some sort of a data, how I will be able to pass some sort of a data inside a class? Let's try to understand that part. So to do that, let's suppose I'm going to create a course class once again. So class course, and then inside this object oriented programming language, Python, there is a provision of a special method. So you can try to use some of the special method which has already been designed for a certain purposes. Now, one of those special method is basically underscore, double underscore, right? Underscore, init, So this is the method you can try to use if you would like to pass some sort of a data at the time of creating an object. Very simple, right? At the time of creating an object, at the time of creating a class variable, if I have to pass some sort of a data, I can try to use init if it is required, right? If it is required. And just like any other function, so obviously I have to give a self. Self is just a convention that we try to give. Otherwise, you can try to give your name, my name. That's completely fine. So here def init I have written, right? Def init I have written over here, and then self. Now I would like to pass some sort of a data over here. So maybe I can try to pass a name and then a mentor when I'm going to create a class object. So how this name and mentor will be passed, and it will be passed towards a class. So to do that, what we have to do is we have to write in this way. So self dot name is equals to name, and self dot mentor is equals to mentor. Simple, right? So let's suppose I have written in this particular manner. Now if I'm going to execute it, now if I'm going to create C is equals to course, and I'm not passing anything. Now let's execute, see what has happened. So here I have given two parameter, name and mentor, which it will be looking for while creating an object. So here you will be able to find out that course init missing two required position argument, name and mentor. So it is looking for a value of name and mentor while creating a class variable, just like this one, right? Just like this one. So it is looking for a name and mentor. So here name of the course I can try to provide is Python and mentor is equals to SUDH. Now it will not complain. So if I have passed it, so how it will be passed towards a class? Let's try to understand that particular part. So here, whenever you are trying to say that Python and Sudhanshu, right? Python and Sudhanshu. So it is going from here to here, right? It will go here to here. Then from here, it is coming here. So this one is going here. And from here, it is coming over here. And then it will try to assign a variable value name. Self.name is equals to name. Self.mentor is equals to mentor. So in this way, it is attaching towards a class. So anyone and everyone will be able to understand that, okay, so this particular name, this particular mentor basically belongs to this particular instance or this particular variable of the class. This is how it will be able to understand. So the variable of the class is C, and C is having two values. So one is name and one is a mentor. C is having two values. One is a name and one is a mentor, which is having technically this value only for C, right? For some other object, so obviously I can try to provide some different name and some different mentor over there. Now, so here, so if I have to access name and mentor, how I will be able to access? So simply I can write C dot name, and I will be able to access a name, Python course name, and C dot means variable dot mentor, and I will be able to access a mentor name. Yeah, I will be able to access the mentor name. Now you can ask me a question once again that is this name and this name should be same? Is this mentor and this mentor should be same? No, not at all, right? Not at all. So for example, if I'm trying to change this one, name 1, and if I'm going to change this one as a mentor 1, now if I'll try to execute till this point, it will work. Now C.name, it is giving me an error. It is telling me that course object has no attribute, means course variable C has no attribute called as name. So basically this is the part which will be attached to, right? Attached to a object and eventually to a class, because object belongs to a class. So this part will be attached. This part is coming from where? So this part is coming from here. That's the reason. So I have drawn that entire flow, that this is how it is going to move. So Python will come here, from here it will be assigned, and this is the actual variable which your class will be able to understand with respect to a particular object. Again, this is the variable your class will be able to understand with respect to a particular object. Very simple, right? Very simple. So here, so I have written this entire thing. Let's suppose if I'm now calling name 1, I will be able to get it. If I'm calling mentor 1, I will be able to get it. So don't get confused. Generally, I have seen that people get confused, especially a beginner. They think that this name and this name is same, but technically it's not the same at all. Yeah, it's not the same at all. Okay, so here we are able to create this class course. Now, so if I have to use this variable inside a class, yeah, if I have to use this variable inside the class, how I can try to use it? So for example, if I'm going to write a method called as display, display, display. So obviously I have to write self as a first parameter so that it can attach to the class. And then if I have to print the name and the mentor. So within the class, right? Outside the class, if you have to access, you will be able to access it with the help of what? With the help of class variable, means object, right? Class variable, which is nothing but object or instances. So with the help of instance, you can try to access it outside the class. But within the class, if you have to access it, you have to access it in this way. Self.name1, you will try to access, and then basically self.mentor1, you will be able to access. So within the class, if you have to access any of its variable, then you have to attach, or you have to write basically or instance variable, I would say, right? Because going forward, I'm going to introduce one more thing, which is a class global variable. But yeah, so as of now, you can understand in this way that instance variable means whatever variable that you are trying to pass at the time of creation of a class variable, technically an object. So I'll keep on saying this class variable, but yeah, it's technically an object. I keep on saying this class variable, because people will be able to relate more and more. When I say object, people get confused. But yeah, it's not different at all, right? Just a just a variable that we used to create for anything and everything that we have done so far. For example, list variable, set variable, tuple variable, dictionary variable, integer variable, float variable, or maybe a complex number variable, boolean variable. It's same. So here, if I have to access some of the variable within the class or within the class method, so I can try to use a self, and with the help of self, I will be able to access it. Now here, so I'm going to create a class object C1, and C1 is basically a course object. So I have to provide a name of the course. So maybe a data CINC data science. Over here, I can try to provide mentor is equals to Sudh. And then C1 dot mentor 1, I can try to access. C1 dot name 1, I can try to access, as well as C1 dot display. Display is a function, right? Display is the function. So I'm not passing any kind of a parameter over here. It is just trying to print what? Name and mentor. So here I will be able to publish, as simple as that. Yeah, I will be able to display in this particular manner. So hope guys, all of you are able to understand the class and object concept. All of you are able to see that how to create a class, how to create an object, how to create a class where while creating an object, it will be looking for the data with the help of init. So I will be using this entire things again and again and again. Plus I have given you a lot of assignment questions. So please try to complete the assignment question. That will give you a complete robust idea, and it will give you a complete hands-on, which is very much important, right? So it is important than even going through a lectures, I would say. So because once you are able to do it on your own, believe me, you will be able to understand, and no one will be able to stop you today, tomorrow, or even in future. So with that guys, thank you so much, and see you again in my next lecture, everyone.